channel has been around for quite a while now, and most of you are well aware of why I created this in the first place, and that is discussing tabletop role-playing games. In this particular episode, we'll be discussing an old TV show that got me interested in stuff like Dungeons & Dragons in the first place. Yep, the time has come to discuss the Dungeons & Dragons cartoon, which was released in 1983, which is shy of 4 years from when I was born. After all, with the upcoming Dungeons & Dragons film in theaters across the world, and the recent hullabaloo that was the OGL scandal, I thought perhaps a good look back at some of the game's older intellectual properties might be worth reminiscing instead of the ongoing, annoying drama that's overtaken both the franchise and the fandom now that the tabletop role-playing games are becoming more mainstream. Hi, hello, and welcome again everybody to another episode of Natural Blonde. This time around we're going to discuss the Dungeons & Dragons cartoon which was made back in the 80s. Before we continue though, I'd like to make a quick shout out to Mr. Jonathan Green, who's been one of my most supportive subscribers since I started this whole game. Also, I would like to briefly mention Sean Getz, Bon Castro, and Wilton Terrible, who also enjoyed the show with me when we were children. Anyway, if you'd like to see more content like this, be sure to check out my channel, hit subscribe, and click that bell for more notifications. So with all that out of the way, it's time for me to guide you all into the world of Dungeons & Dragons. Note though that this video will mostly be about the cartoon and not the tabletop role-playing game itself. If that's what you came for and the troubles brought about by the recent OGL scandal, then this might be the wrong video for you. Of course, I might discuss that specific issue one of these days, but this video will not be about that. Anyway, the Dungeons & Dragons cartoon is mainly about 6 children and their pet unicorn Uni as they travel and adventure in a strange world simply called the Realm, but is heavily implied to be the Forgotten Realm setting. The 6 children are from our world and were transported to a strange fantasy world simply by taking a kind of roller coaster ride that shares the same name as Dungeons & Dragons. These 6 children are Hank, the Ranger, Eric, the Cavalier, Sheila, the Thief, Diana, the Acrobat, Bobby, the Barbarian, and Presto, the Magician. As mentioned, the group is accompanied by the baby unicorn Uni, whose voice, provided by Frank Welker no less, who has also provided the voices of Megatron from Transformers and Fred from Scooby-Doo, is either endearing or outright infuriating to some fans. Another major character in the series is Dungeon Master, a short man in an elaborate red robe who guides the children from one adventure to the next and always speaks in riddles, much to the annoyance of the adventuring party and the audience. This is a far cry from actual Dungeon Masters, who play the game as the DM, short for Dungeon Master, as they more or less tell the in-game story and control NPCs or non-player characters such as merchants and monsters. In any case, many fans of the show tend to think that the Dungeon Master is the show's version of Yoda, who bring much-needed wisdom to the adventuring children, not unlike that of Aslan in the Narnia franchise, and acts as the force of good in a world consumed by evil. However, there are also fans who seem to think that he could actually be more straightforward with adventurers, and is, in the view of some, deliberately endangering the children in a hostile world. Moving on, the children are repeatedly forced to confront and repeatedly foil the plans of Venger, who is the show's main villain, an evil sorcerer with a pale complexion, garbed in red, and riding atop a flying black horse. It was Venger who reduced the realm into the apocalyptic horror-filled world that it is now. And, as if that wasn't enough, Venger is also voiced by Peter Cullen, whose iconic voice can be found in other shows such as Optimus Prime and Transformers. Note, however, that while Venger might be the biggest threat to the children and is responsible for much of the realm's troubles, the children are in no way required to harm him, but only to foil his plans. Now we go back to the children, which the show's story mainly focuses on. Hank is the team's leader and is a ranger as per D&D lore. He is armed with a magical bow that is more than just a weapon that can shoot pointed things at monsters. His bow can also be used to create magical ropes of light, that can entangle or entrap enemies or even create rope ladders that the team can use on some occasions. It's not made clear how powerful his bow really is, but it's definitely something to consider, since it is shown on one occasion to be powerful enough to kill Venger if Hank himself decided to use it that way. Eric is a cavalier and can best be described as the team's complainer and resident jerk, much like Reggie from Archie Comics. He possesses a magical shield that allows him to project a powerful force field to protect his teammates and other people from otherwise deadly attacks. It has been shown to be able to withstand the withering powers of ultimate evil in one occasion even. It should also be noted that while Eric is quite a dick at times, he is sometimes shown to be a good teammate with good protective instincts, although his constant complaining does get on the nerves of the other kids as well as the audience sometimes. Then we have Diana, who is the team's acrobat, who is best remembered for her athleticism and aggression. Armed with a magical staff that can extend to great lengths or shrink to a small size, Diana is one of the more action-oriented characters and is notable for being one of the first characters to go into combat when the need arises. Her greatest fear is growing old, and is understandable since, being a gymnast, aging can be quite devastating to her career and passion. We also have Sheila the Thief, who can best be thought of as the team's mom character as she looks after the others during times of emotional stress. This is not surprising as Bobby, the team's barbarian, is her younger brother. Instead of a handheld weapon, Sheila makes use of a magical violet hooded cloak that can make her invisible for a period of time. There is, of course, Bobby, little brother of Sheila the Thief, who is the team's barbarian. Possessed of a massive great club that grants him superhuman strength, he is the team's most aggressive fighter, capable of bringing down enemies larger than himself. He is also, unfortunately, impulsive and short-tempered, which has brought trouble to the team on multiple occasions. That said, how can he be a barbarian if he cannot go into a rage, which the barbarian class is iconic for? Lastly, we have Presto the Magician, with his magic hat that can produce just about anything. Unfortunately, the magic hat doesn't always conjure what he asks it to, and is often too literal in providing materials for the poor young magician. Presto is also your stereotypical nerd, or at least as they were perceived back in the 80s, and often suffers from a severe lack of confidence. The show contains many more characters such as Tiamat, the five-headed dragon goddess that is one of the more iconic characters of Dungeons & Dragons, and the cowardly knight Sir John. Indeed, the realm is filled with many memorable characters that I would prefer you all see for yourself than describe them here, as getting to know them is an adventure in and of itself, as I've come to discover. Indeed, as a child, this cartoon is easily one of the cornerstones of my childhood along with Eta Rangers, which I've already covered in another video. All in all, the characters in the story seem a little overpowered compared to their tabletop game counterparts. Indeed, their dependence on their magical weapons and items and their lack of knowledge about their environment make them more like player characters in a game of Savage Worlds rather than traditional Dungeons & Dragons. Nonetheless, it's still a good entry for those who want more. To know more about the game and its setting, rather than how it's actually played. Anyway, that's it for this episode of Natural One, and I certainly hope that all of you enjoyed it. If you would like to see more like it, just subscribe to my channel and hit that bell for notifications. May you find inspiration in this show, as I have, and perhaps even include it in your own games of Dungeons & Dragons. Natural One, out.